As she'd learned recently, digging into other people's pasts was a hell of a lot easier than digging into her own. "For God's sake," she muttered and reached for the door. She was a little disgusted with herself for being such a wimp and a weenie, and she squelched her apprehension under the heavy fist of her strong will. Nothing was going to happen that she did not want to happen. She was in control, as always. The heavy thump of the jukebox and the smell of hops and tobacco assaulted her as she stepped inside. The door shut behind her, and she paused to let her eyes adjust to the dim light. Mort's was just a bar, like 1,000 others she'd been in across the country. Nothing special. Not even the array of antlers hanging above the long mahogany bar was anything out of the ordinary. Maddie didn't like bars, especially cowboy bars. The smoke, the music, the steady stream of beer. She didn't particularly care for cowboys either. As far as she was concerned, a pair of snug wranglers on a tight cowboy butt couldn't quite make up for the boots, the buckles, the wads of chew. She liked her men in suits and Italian leather shoes. Not that she'd had a man, or even a date, in about 4 years. She studied the crowd as she wove her way to the middle of the long oak bar and the only empty stool. Her gaze took in cowboy hats and trucker caps, a few crew cuts, and a mullet or two. She noticed ponytails, shoulder-length bobs, and some of the worst perms and flipped bangs to ever come out of the 80s. What she didn't see was the one person she'd come searching for, although she didn't really expect to see him sitting at one of the tables. She wedged herself onto the stool between a man in a blue t-shirt and a woman with over-processed hair. Behind the cash register and bottles of alcohol, a mirror ran the length of the bar while 2 bartenders pulled beers and blended drinks. Neither was the owner of this fine establishment.
"That little gal was into AC/DC, if you know what I mean,"
said the man on her left, and Maddie figured he wasn't talking about Back in Black or Highway to Hell. The guy in question was about 60, sported a battered trucker's hat and a beer belly the size of a pony keg. Through the mirror, Maddie watched several men down the row nod, paying rapt attention to Beer Belly Guy. One of the bartenders set a napkin in front of her and asked what she'd like to drink. He looked to be about 19, although she supposed he had to be at least 21. Old enough to pour liquor within the layers of tobacco smoke and knee-deep bullshit. "Sapphire martini, extra dry, 3 olives," she said, calculating the carbs in the olives. She pulled her purse into her lap and watched the bartender turn and reach for the good gin and vermouth.
"I told that little gal she could keep her girlfriend, so long as she brought her over once in a while," the guy on her left added. "Damn right. That's what I'm talking about."
Then again, this was small-town Idaho, where things like liquor laws were sometimes overlooked, and some people considered a good bullshit story a form of literature. Maddie rolled her eyes and bit her lip to keep her comments to herself. She had a habit of saying what she thought. She didn't necessarily consider it a bad habit, but not everyone appreciated it. Through the mirror, her gaze moved up, then down the bar, searching for the owner. Not that she thought she'd see him plopped down on a stool any more than sitting at a table. When she'd called the other bar he owned in town, she'd been told that he would be here tonight, and she figured he was probably in his office examining his books, or, if he was like his father, the inner thigh of a barmaid. "I pay for everything," the woman on Maddie's opposite side wailed to her friend. "I even bought my own birthday card and had J.W. sign it, thinking he'd feel bad and get the hint." "Oh, geez," Maddie couldn't help but mutter, and looked at the woman through the mirror. Between the bottles of Absolute and Sky vodka, she could make out big blonde hair falling to chubby shoulders and breasts spilling out of a red tank top with rhinestones on it.
"He didn't feel bad at all. Just complained that he didn't like